Welcome to the new bun caramelizing system by DoPro. There's nothing like it in the market today. We have patented it, and it seems that it's certainly a great alternative to the way in which you cook hamburger buns. As you can see, there's pedestals on the top, and those pedestals are to conform to the bun. As you can see, the caramelization, how it completely caramelizes that bun and interjects a heat from 140 to 190 degrees F inside the bun with a skin that protects from seepage of garnishments. Okay, now these pedestals are removable. Thank God he's got an edit machine. These pedestals are removable for cleaning purposes. As you can see, they come right off. That's a magnet there. The other side's a stainless steel plug. And they magnetize and hold it in place for the operator to have them evenly spaced across the platen. And it's imperative to get a good transfer of heat, that there's no particles, grains, or any substance underneath the tube, so they can make a flat contact. If there was something underneath and lifted up one side of this thing, the temperature will not be the right temperature to grill these buns in a minute 10 seconds. Thus, we have allowed us to remove these for easy cleaning, so there's no radiuses to clean around and no edges that the carbon or whatever would build up. So we now have them removable. And there's a series of 4 timers. Each timer represents a row. When they stack a row out there, they'll push the button, and minute 10 will count down. To 0, and then it'll say done, and then you set the timer, and it resets itself, and you pull the buns off. Now, the platen that is here has an embedded, encasted heater, which we're known for, and we have a limited lifetime warranty, and I'll show you the flip side of it right now. This is the heater. There's 2 of them, or 2 zones, the outer and the inner. It's described in the operations manual, which is zone 1, which is zone 2. The outer perimeter is meant to create a way to control the heat from the outer, because it cools quicker than the center. And then the center one controls the temperature in the center areas. And it's followed by 2 sensors for zones 1 and 2. These are RTD 2000 ohm sensors. The wire is brazed on, and that's how we do it here. We silver braze the wiring on about as best as connection you could possibly have. And this spot here is for the high temp limiter, which sits right here inside the grill. Inside the mechanics of the unit, we have, of course, this controller is run by 12 volts with a transformer coming in at 208 and coming out on the secondary side 12 volts. This is the master controller that has the temperature controller, and it also functions as a timer. And these are slave timers. Please note, the end one here on the right side has the only beeper on there. So if you were to replace these and not have the beeper, there would not be beeping. There would not be any beeping. So make sure that the 3rd unit, which comes in a package, shouldn't be a problem. Should be the beeper. So it comes through. It goes through this mechanical relay that's driving the fan. It turns on with the electronic start button. And these 2 relays are driving the heaters. They all come off of this right here, which is going to individual heaters. So it's a dual control situation with a fan. It's pretty important that the fan keeps running. It does keep it cool in there. Since part of this is a part of the cavity of the heater, it can get hot in there. We did some updating, as you can see down below, that all the heater and the surface is completely enclosed with insulation backing it to prevent any extra heat from coming into here. Now, the best way to go through this is I'm going to go through that sheet, that brochure that was emailed to you on troubleshooting the unit, and we'll go over this one step at a time. I'm looking at the first one. The power button or control face is not depressed but doesn't turn, is depressed but doesn't turn on. We're talking about this power button right here. If you were to turn this on and nothing happens, obviously the first thing to find out is it plugged in. I know this sounds silly, but sometimes I've seen it where they go through all this technical stuff, found out it wasn't plugged in. Or if the main circuit breaker threw in the building, if that occurred, to check to see if the circuit breaker needs to be reset or not. Let me go back to another thing. If this is turned on and you see nothing happening, like you turn this thing on, you press it, and nothing's happening, everything here on the control side is driven by 12 volts. So the transformer here, obviously there's 120 getting in, 208 getting in, but is the secondary side receiving 12 volts going to the power supply of this controller? This would control the fan, relays, lighting, all that bit. So it could be a situation where that transformer's gone and you check the voltage on the transformer to see if you're getting 12 volts to ensure that it's not a downed transformer. If the transformer fails, a lot of it has to do with incoming spikes that come in from the store level, motors in the kitchen, or something that may have caused that transformer to go. It just needs to disconnect and replace the transformer. And you'll find out that's a problem if you're not getting 12 volts secondary on the secondary side. Okay, I'm going to go to the next thing here. Digital display shows probe, P-R-O-B. No heat is in a particular zone, inner or the outer. Well, what happens is that's our signal as a signaling device to let us know that there's something wrong with the sensor, which I've showed you up here. And most likely the continuity is broken in the sensor, so it's there's no continuity. And instead of allowing the controller, the machine to, or the grill to overheat, it just, the logic and the software says shut down. I get no continuity, I'm shutting this thing down because it could go with a runaway heat. So that's what that probe means. And you've got two zones. You might be getting some good temperature on one zone, and one zone seems closer, but it mainly tells you probe here on the particular zone, beeping, flashing, probing. That's most obvious. That is the problem. The other thing is digital display shows relay. I think it spells out on here RLY, no, RLRY or something like that across here. That means that it's going past temperature and racing past temperature among a setting we put in there as maximum temperature, what could be 550. And the relays might have frozen in the closed position, and that I suspect with no signal coming to this relay from the controller, which is this side, if you're not getting 12 volts here, but yet it's still working and running, it's telling us that the relay is closed in the closed position, and runaway heat. Instantly replace the relay on it. And that applies for this one too. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the particular pedestal is lower than 400F. These are called pedestals. Red Robin calls it pucks. If that is not reaching temperature, we have to check the following situation. Like we talked about before, the pedestal might have debris underneath, causing sure contact with the surface, not allowing the heat to transfer, and that's why the temperature. This has to lay flat. You can take something and tap it, see if it's flat. You might have to sand that area down a little bit, clean it up, get it flat again. That's the first thing it has to do. It's got to stay flat. It's imperative that no particles are underneath between the platen and the pedestal. If you've noticed a ding or whatever in the casting, sand that down. It's okay to sand the surface. Sand that thing down so it doesn't rise, or if the pedestal's warped or whatever. If it doesn't make good contact, that's your problem. You need to either fix or replace that pedestal. The outer or inner perimeter, the outer zone or the inner zone, labeled Zone 1, Zone 2 in here, is not heating. there's an offset function that if it's as simple as calibrating, there's an offset function that will, and again, we calibrate from the surface here to here, and we calibrate with an offset to get that temperature either up or down, and most 99.9% we're going up, which is a negative number on the offset, to bring that temperature up. That's something you're probably going to have to, you might make sure that that's not causing a problem, just simple calibration then. And we recommend to call customer tech support to exactly how to set the offsets internally inside the controller. Another thing that occurs where maybe there's a digital control or flashing and doing all kinds of weird numbering system. One way I would do it, first of all, is to unplug the machine, wait for about a minute, plug it in, and see if something got in the electrical there that caused this thing to do this. More 9 out of 10 times, that'll fix the problem. But if that does not fix the problem, the controller might have taken a hit. One of the components of the controller, display reader, whatever they call that in there, this display chip, may be damaged, and you need to replace the controller by itself. We've had occasions where the beepers stop functioning. This thing, all of a sudden, they press it, it doesn't beep, time off, time, beeps when it's finished, doesn't beep when you're depressing buttons. It's as simple as, this is the diaphragm in here. Sometimes by just flicking it, getting it to be free, fixes it. You could try that. You could unplug it, plug it back in, tap with this thing. If that doesn't do the job, then we'd have to replace that timer to resolve the problem. That's happened quite a bit in the past year or so, and we're trying to improve upon that as we speak today. The other thing is the cooling fan. If that does not turn on, obviously it's finding out if on this side is the 12 volts coming in on the coil. Find out if this controller is this relay is receiving a signal from this controller. If you're getting 12 volt, it's saying the controller's doing what it's got to do. It's not getting to there. Could mean that this has been fried in the open position. But if it is sending us 12 volt signal here, it's definitely the relay. Replace the relay. If it's not sending to 12 and it's below temperature set point, it could very well feed back to the controller. The controller may have a problem with it. You might have to replace the controller. Either heater platen is not heating, but the digital controller is on and appears to be functioning. If the solid state relays are indicated by the controller functioning properly, then it's unlikely. One of the heaters embedded into the heated casting may have lost its continuity. Somewhere along the line there's a break. That is what I'm talking about. That is under a limited lifetime warranty. The limited part means that after 1 year of warranty of service on this machine or this grill, that it is still, DoPro will replace this platen at no charge, but after 1 year the customer has to pay you, the ASA, to have it installed. It doesn't come back to us. That's hence where the term limited comes in. But yes, it's true. This is a very expensive piece of component here. DoPro is standing behind the longevity of these heaters. If at any time one of these heater continuities go on you, we're behind it. Got to make sure that you test continuity from the point here, the cold pin, and not at the end here, because it could possibly be a break of wire. If it comes back and we inspect it and the heater's fine, the guy's going to get billed for a new casting. So you got to be careful and make sure that the continuity stops. Here's one end and here from the point of the cold pin down. Anything above that you're checking through here does not mean that the heater is out. It could be another component. That concludes on the troubleshooting. Of course, the high temp limiter is set to 550. One way to check high temp limiter, obviously you guys know, is just to join two of these together and bypass the limiter. If that functions, that tells you there's something wrong with the high temp limiter. We've had one go out in about 100 pieces of equipment. I don't think this is a very reliable, expensive piece of component here. I don't think that is going to be the problem, but you never know. It did happen once. It happened again. We do have it fused. I'm trying to find it right here on the secondary side, protecting the controller. So again, if you're not getting any power, be sure to check that fuse, that the fuse is not blown, allowing power to come to this. That's something I had forgot to talk about earlier. In the brochure, we have the confidential, complete instructions on the digital controller. This is not for the use of the franchise, the store, any management. This is not to go out. Because what happens is they're going to start playing with this, mess up the control so bad they got to call and we got to send them back to the default, no, back to the original, and then give them their currently set offset zone numbers to bring it back. So do not give this to them, nor do you talk about this to them, because I know in the past that could be a problem. I'm skimming through the manuals given to you guys. This is not given to the store level. Of course, we have our breakdown of our exposure drawing parts. All of this is correct and in the system. And last but not least, our wire diagram that allows you to run through this thing and be able to run through it correctly. It's very important too that when you're testing controls, you got to make sure the machine heats all the way up. You can't just go in 15 minutes. You got to even get this part hot. The whole thing draws heat. So it's a good 45 minutes before I would even start calibrating this after you've done a fix or have to recalibrate it by setting new offsets. You got to get this thing up to temperature. This surface here is bare aluminum, and so is this. It's easily dinged. It's soft metal. It's easily dinged and scratched, so it's imperative that we don't see any scratches or cuts or bends or dings on either side of anything here. We have completely sealed off this zone here so that anything that's used, warm water or anything, won't go past and go inside the electrical component and leak. So we made sure everything is sealed here and to prevent this in the future. This concludes DoPro's model BC2325 208 volt single phase 3800 watt 18.25 amp system. It is on a 30 amp circuit. The plug's 30 amp as to comply with the 125% overage of standard amp loading rate. Thank you.